We are here today in the Los Angeles Police Department after meeting all morning with the elected district attorneys of California to talk about the priority that we collectively have to eliminate and reduce gun violence in our state. I asked the district attorneys of California for their leadership in this regard, and we created a group that we call the Gun Violence Leadership Group to come together and talk about best practices in the 58 counties of California, to talk about what we could do to collaborate, what we could do to bring our resources together to address one of the most pressing issues that our state faces in terms of public safety. So we met during the course of the morning and we had that discussion. It was a discussion about what we could do to enhance our ability that we have through the California Department of Justice to address the APS list, a list of people who are designated as armed and prohibited persons because they are individuals who we know have purchased a gun, but are also individuals who were convicted of a felony and thereby prohibited from owning or possessing a gun, or they have been found by a court to be mentally ill and therefore prohibited from owning or possessing a gun. Through the Department of Justice over the course of the last 2 years, we have focused a priority on the individuals on that list. We've put resources into that. I'm also proud to say that Governor Brown signed legislation recently that will give us $24 million in addition to the money that we have to increase and beef up the enforcement around knocking on the doors of those individuals who are on that list and reminding them that if they are in possession of a gun, they are violating the law, and we will take those guns. So the focus is on the armed and prohibited persons list and what we can do with the elected DAs of California to ensure that we address that as a priority, and in the next 3 years in particular, eliminate the backlog. And currently we have approximately 20,000 individuals who are on that list, and we need to make sure that we visit with them as soon as possible and take the guns out of their hands. And these DAs, as well as the other DAs of the state of California, have pledged their commitment to continue to doing the work of taking the guns out of the people on that list. We also talked about recognizing that there's a national debate, of course, that has occurred around gun violence and what can and should be done about it. This group understands that we in California have some of the strongest laws as it relates to guns in the United States. And we are here to rededicate ourselves to making sure that we are enforcing the laws that are currently on the books. We are here to rededicate ourselves to something that we know as career prosecutors, which is that we as a nation, and certainly we as a state, cannot afford to have this conversation in a way that is burdened by ideology or politics. We have to be practical and recognize that no one wants guns to be in the hands of people who are legally prohibited from owning or possessing them. It is a false choice to suggest that one is either in favor of the Second Amendment or in favor of reasonable gun safety rules. We can be both, and I think this group will tell you that they are dedicated to being smart on this issue and not getting seduced into a conversation that distracts us from the job at hand. A third part of our conversation this morning was what we can do to prevent gun violence, because we know as career prosecutors, public safety will best be achieved in a smart way if we not only react to crime after it happens, but do everything we can to prevent crime before it happens. And the elected district attorneys of California are in a particularly unique and strong position to work on that as leaders of criminal justice policy in their counties and therefore in this state. So I'm very proud of the work of each of them, and I thank them for their leadership and their commitment to go forward. You can see that we have on display here the assault weapons and the guns that we have taken out of the hands of people who are on that list. I want to thank in particular the special agents of the California Department of Justice and others for the work that they have done to make sure that these guns will not be in the hands of people who are legally prohibited from owning or possessing them. And so with that, I want to introduce the great district attorney of the great county of Los Angeles, Jackie Lacey.
Good afternoon. The LA County District Attorney's Office is pleased to participate in the Attorney General's Leadership Group on Violence. As the District Attorney of LA County, it's important to me that all Los Angeles County residents and all California residents be safe, especially from harm that we can prevent by curtailing the illegal use of firearms. The matter is so important to me that I did not hesitate when Attorney General Kamala Harris invited me to take a leadership role with the group. Our purpose is to harness the collective wisdom of elected DAs throughout California. We plan to take a common sense approach to this very critical issue facing our state and our nation. The leadership group had its first meeting today and discussed how to enforce existing laws. The state of California has some of the most comprehensive laws designed to curtail the illegal possession and use of guns. We are examining how best to enforce the laws already on the books. We discussed in particular the laws that strictly prohibit people convicted of felonies or who have been deemed a danger to themselves or others by virtue of mental illness to possess guns. This prohibition also includes people who are convicted of felonies or misdemeanors or the subject of domestic violence restraining orders. The names of the people prohibited from possessing guns can be compared with the list of people who have purchased guns registered within the state. Obviously, these otherwise legal purchases occurred before the gun owners were placed on the armed and prohibited persons list. The app's database cross-references 5 different databases to identify people who legally purchased handguns and registered assault weapons since 1996, with people who are now prohibited from owning or possessing these firearms. The database was completed in 2006, and the first statewide sweep was conducted in 2007. By simply concentrating our resources on confiscating these illegal guns, we're protecting children and other potentially innocent victims from life-altering gun-related injuries or worse, death. These people have been located on the armed and prohibited list, living in the city of Los Angeles, and many of them have had their guns confiscated by the LAPD, led by Chief Charlie Beck. They have simply asked residents to voluntarily surrender guns illegally possessed or anywhere in the control of those persons who are prohibited, and they have been remarkably successful. We also discussed developing a computerized system to better track how guns end up in the hands of criminals. We can use existing records and police reports, in essence, to run, quote, a rap sheet or criminal history on a firearm. With better information, we in law enforcement can perhaps use a focused approach to make it more difficult for a criminal to get guns in California. It's time to take stock at what we are doing in California and find new ways to protect the lives of our children and other victims, innocent victims, from gun violence. Thank you.
Thank you, and it's my great pleasure to introduce the Police Chief of Los Angeles, Charlie Beck, who is a leader on this issue, not only in this, our largest county in the state, but across the nation. And so I thank you, Chief Beck, and please come up and share your thoughts.
Well, thank you, and I applaud our great Attorney General Kamala Harris and all of our DAs, especially my DA, Jackie Lacey, for the leadership on this issue. You know, I'm very proud of what the Los Angeles Police Department has done with the prohibited possessors list in the city of Los Angeles. We have worked our way steadfastly through all the people that are on that list due to mental illness, and we have visited all of their homes and confiscated their weapons. But LA is not an island, and all these best practices that the DAs talk so eloquently about today have got to be shared. That's the strength. The strength is in the smart ideas that are occurring all over the state, the sharing, and then the equal distribution of those strategies so that we can do our best to make this state safe. And then maybe we can take it to the rest of the nation and we can get some gun laws in our adjoining states that match the gun laws of the state of California. So let's clean our own house first before we point at other folks. So thanks again to Kamala. I'm more than pleased to host this. I'll host the next one and the next one and the next one. This is indeed a smart way to look at the gun problem in the state of California. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Next, I want to introduce the District Attorney of Alameda County, Nancy O'Malley, who, as with the other leaders who are here, who I will introduce, is going to compile the discussion, the information that came out of the discussion we had today, through her office and the leadership of those other DAs who are here. We will then publish a report for the elected DAs of California about best practices and what we can do going forward. Nancy O'Malley.
Thank you and good afternoon. Today's meeting of district attorneys that was convened by our Attorney General has been a very monumental experience for us. We all came here at the request and leadership of our Attorney General, and we stand proudly with her in our unwavering commitment to combat gun violence and to keep our community safe. I join my fellow district attorneys in really thanking our Attorney General for her leadership on not only this issue, but on so many issues that are changing our nation. And as Chief Beck said, today California, tomorrow the rest of the country. It is through our Attorney General and my colleagues in the elected district attorneys, our unwavering commitment and vision to make California a safer place that has us working closely together and jointly, sharing our data, sharing our best practices, sharing our information, sharing our resources. There are more than 120 laws on the books of California addressing gun violence. Yet, in my county, as in the rest of this state, our law enforcement partners struggle to keep up with the increasing number of violent crimes that involve firearms. Last year, my office charged over 1,200 criminal defendants with gun-related offenses, ranging from illegal possession to armed robbery to murder. In 2012, the city of Oakland, the largest city in my county, was rocked by the staggering volume of homicides. 131 homicides in the city of Oakland. Most were committed with the use of a firearm. And since the beginning of 2013, Oakland has logged already 34 murders, over 185 assaults involving firearms, and almost 1,000 robberies involving firearms. This is a national epidemic. It is a statewide epidemic. And for all of us, it's right at home epidemic. And it's time for our district attorneys to step up, as we will, and show the leadership to bring these cases into the courtroom to stop the guns flowing into our communities. In my neighborhoods, as in many across the state, urban and suburban, we see children, sometimes as young as 12 years old, using guns. And then there are the crimes that bring us all to a stop. Last November in Oakland, 2 young 15-year-old girls were on the street and they got caught in the crossfire of a barrage of gunfire. Both were murdered by individuals who are barely adults themselves. Last month, an off-duty paramedic was driving through Oakland. He pulled over to use his cell phone so he wouldn't break the law by talking on his cell phone while driving. And very tragically, he was murdered as part of a carjacking attempt in the middle of the day in a nice neighborhood. The frequency and level of gun-related violence we're experiencing in all parts of this country cannot be sustained. From mass shootings in schools, in malls, and movie theaters, to killing children caught in crossfire, we must say, and your district attorneys across this state are saying, enough. As the elected district attorney of each of our counties, we are tasked with demonstrating that leadership through public awareness campaigns so people in our communities know how to get guns out of their hands, how to get guns out of the hands of people who should not have them. It is also our responsibility to prosecute those cases when people are illegally using guns or people are using guns end up in the hands of criminals. So I once again thank our Attorney General for her leadership, for bringing us together, and for moving this issue forward in an aggressive, responsible, smart way. Thank you.
I think it's important to highlight the significance of these elected DAs taking this leadership. When you think about criminal justice policy as it is created and as it is implemented in the United States, most significant, meaningful criminal justice policy comes out of the State House, comes out of the local legislature for each state. And the guiding force and the leaders, usually, on that issue will be the elected DAs, who will inform, influence, implement, and enforce the laws that come out of that State House. And these are the leaders behind us who make those important choices. They are the ones who have in their possession information about the cases that are actually coming through their offices. They make the important decisions about how, with limited resources, we do the best we can to achieve public safety. So when they take a role of leadership on this issue or any other issue, we all should listen, and we should feel confident that good and right decisions are being made. So I want to thank them all, and we have a number of elected leaders here. Not everyone could speak, but the District Attorney of Marin County, Ed Barbarian, is here. Thank you for your leadership as part of the gun leadership of California. District Attorney Mike Ramos from San Bernardino County, thank you for your longstanding leadership, and many of these are past presidents of the California District Attorneys Association, so I want to thank them for that as well. The great District Attorney Lieberstein, he hails from Northern California, where he has been a great leader and dealing with a lot of issues that relate to not only gang crime but mental illness, and is leading us there. Mike Fuhrer is going to speak in a moment, and then you've heard, and then we have back there Jeff Rosen, the District Attorney Jeff Rosen, and then District Attorney Steve Wagstaff, who are all leaders in this effort. So that with that, I want to next introduce Mike Fuhrer. Today, my office, the California Department of Justice, announced that we have cleared and certified, therefore, microstamping technology. His leadership back in 2007 created a law in California that would require that we implement basically a mechanism where the ammunition that is fired from a pistol would be stamped with identifying information, so that when that ammunition is then found after use in a crime, we could connect it back to the original pistol, the original firearm. The problem for the implementation of that law was that there were a series of patents that were in place that needed to be cleared over the past couple of years. We have announced today that they have been cleared, which means that this very important technology will help us as law enforcement in identifying and locating people who improperly and illegally use and discharge firearms. So Mike Fuhrer, would you come up and give us a little bit of information about that, please?
Thank you very much, General Harris. This is a monumental day for law enforcement. Today, microstamping becomes the operative law of the state of California. Tomorrow, it should become the law of the nation. Let me discuss why this is such an important rule in place in California and how the technology works by giving you an example or two of real cases. Two young children are going to a neighborhood mini-mart, and they're gunned down in a drive-by shooting. Law enforcement arrives at the scene. There are shell casings found at the scene, those casings that had formerly housed bullets as they left the gun. No leads. A man is driving down a freeway. He's hailed at the side of the road by a woman who appears to be in distress. He goes to help her, but it's a setup. They try to rob him. He runs. Shots are fired. He's hit. Law enforcement arrives at the scene. No leads. Microstamping technology, as General Harris just indicated, offers law enforcement the potential to solve gun crimes in a way that never has happened before. Here's why. When a gun is fired, a semi-automatic handgun is fired, it's a little explosion inside the barrel of the gun. When that takes place before the shell casing and the bullet which is housed leaves the barrel of the gun, there is a stamp, laser imprinted stamp, that is placed on that shell casing. When the shell casing falls from the gun as the bullet goes to its intended target, that shell casing has stamped within a code that states the make, model, and serial number of the gun that fired the bullet. This is an essential lead for law enforcement, which is why when I wrote this legislation, more than 65 police chiefs and sheriffs throughout the state of California stood with me in support of this legislation. This is a big day. After I wrote the law, and after Governor Schwarzenegger signed the law into effect, there was, as General Harris mentioned, an effort made by a pro-gun lobby group to move forward and try to prevent the law from taking effect. The pro-gun group started to pay for patents that otherwise were going to expire to try to prevent the law from happening. We are past that day. In the meantime, others across the country were paying attention. I was asked to testify by live teleconference before a committee of the New York State Legislature, as New York was contemplating replicating California's law there. Other states are looking as well. By the passage of that law in 2007 and General Harris's certification of this law today, We are opening the doors to states throughout the United States to replicate this legislation that is such an important potential tool for law enforcement as we share our common goal. One of General Harris's key themes today has been that there should be little ideological discussion around many of these rules. We ought to be coming together. All of us ought to be coming together to solve gun crime. Microstamping is about solving gun crime for crimes that otherwise would go unsolved. As I think most of you know, about 40% of California's homicides go unsolved every year. The lion's share of those are committed by gun. We can do something to change that. It's an honor to be here, and I want to say a word about General Harris. This is a decisive moment, a moment of real action. And I think it's emblematic of General Harris's leadership on so many issues in the state of California, which have been proud to work with her. And I think all of us in this community will be safer because this technology, this law, is now the law of California. Thank you.